Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Think About It. I've been gone for a couple of weeks, but your girl is back, and we're going to have a great show tonight. We're going to, as my friend Maurice Evans says, we're going to bring the heat tonight. I have a special guest with me tonight, Miss Robbie Caban. She's out of Atlanta, Georgia, and she's an activist slash real estate agent. And so we're going to talk about urban renewal, gentrification, and real estate, and how it all connects together. So again, this is going to be a great night. I want to just thank everybody for a little bit of your time. Thank Robbie for coming on again. And Robbie, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Okay.
No, I'm so sorry. Both my doors are open. If it gets too noisy, please let me know.
Okay.
I want to thank you for having me on. I felt very honored and touched when I heard from you, especially in regards to what was happening, to what you were witnessing in your community. I definitely relate. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, where we have, an incredible amount of transition, gentrification, colonization, revitalization, however people want to term it. And it's among us, and we need to talk about it openly in safe spaces. So that's where I feel like this is offering.
Yes, awesome. Thank you. So before we get started, I'm going to start off with a video. So everybody watch this video, and if you have a question or a comment, put it in the chat and we will address it. But let's start off with this video. And so it's going to give people a good visual of what we're talking about.
Is this Nola?
Yes. Yeah.
About which process?
The neighbor said that you're upset about...
What neighbor? All that's hearsay.
Okay, all right. Well,
I haven't heard
we're just all trying
any
to have
neighbor.
a good time for 1 hour.
Yeah.
And then it'll be over.
Yeah.
1 hour, we're trying to jazz, have some semblance of normal. We'd love for you to come down and have a good time. We got margaritas, we got tacos.
I don't want any margaritas. I don't want any tacos. What I want is I want to be considered. Where are you from? How long you been here? Where you can just come shut my fucking street down and don't tell me you're having a party or nothing?
This is my home, and I would love...
Where you from? This street ain't your home.
Yeah, it is.
Where you from?
I'm from here.
You're not from this street. I live in my great-grandmother's house. You a fucking lie. Where you really from? Now you're running. You want to talk to me? Talk to me. Where you from?
I'm trying to hang out with you.
Where you
I'd
from?
like it if you come hang out with me.
Where you from? Tell me that. You don't want to hang out with me. You don't want to answer to my...
I live here.
Where were you raised? You weren't raised here. I was raised there. I know you weren't raised here. Be real with me if you really want to hang with me. Where are you from?
Arkansas.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Now we can begin a basis of community.
Gentrification is fundamentally a social justice problem. It's not. Tom Slater describes gentrification, he's an urban geographer, he describes gentrification as the spatial expression of economic inequality. As higher income people move to these areas, it's typically to capitalize on the low property values. In doing so, they inflate property values, displace low-income people, and fundamentally alter the culture and character of the neighborhood.
There might also be changes in neighborhood norms and policing. For example, an increased police presence in order for new residents to feel safe. On the whole, we cannot ignore that the adverse impacts of gentrification, ranging from individual health effects to the suburbanization of poverty, are only the most recent wave in a pattern of urban restructuring that has been imposed upon and negatively affected low-income and communities of color over generations. Public, private, and nonprofit sector leaders have the opportunity to implement strategies that give longtime residents a chance to benefit from increased investment in their communities and even be part of driving how some of the changes in their neighborhoods take place. In order to invest in communities without displacement, policies, programs, and financing tools are needed to protect renters from formal and informal displacement pressures, facilitate the production of more affordable housing, and preserve and upgrade the existing affordable housing stock. Involving community residents in planning and decision-making about their neighborhoods and region can and should be a key piece of all three of these strategies.
All right. So there's a quick little video to talk about how gentrification really affects communities. You know, a lot of times we get people that say, well, it's just revitalization. But like the lady said in the video, if you're not revitalizing the people and the historic community that's there, then it's not revitalization.
Right.
Right. So I've been to Atlanta a few times and I've seen the gentrification. I've seen, I can't remember the area I've gone to, but you see these gigantic high rise apartments. If you just go right around the corner, you see regular homes, you know, that have been forgotten. And that's what I'm seeing here in Wichita. And that's why I'm trying to wave the flag. You know, I want people to pay attention to what's going on. So I know this is your neck of the woods, and I know you've been doing some work in this area. So just kind of tell us from your perspective what's going on nationwide.
I think the area that you visited was Reynoldstown, which sounds right. It was actually under I-20, Interstate 20. So Atlanta has very typical to many cities in the U.S. A north side and a south side. And you know, the south side, South Chicago, South Baltimore, South Bronx. I'm originally from the South Bronx, so I know what gentrification, revitalization, transitioning communities look like. And actually, I purposely chose to live in Southwest Atlanta, which is under the dividing line. And actually, there used to be an actual wall in Atlanta among races. It's known. The mark is not there. The historic mark is no longer there, but it was Interstate 20. And so I chose to live in a place that I felt more comfortable among diversity. But now, due to both the East Coast and the West Coast gentrifying, everyone is kind of leaving those coasts and using those monetary gains in the property values to move central, which is not only happening in Atlanta, but in your city. But the saddest part is that despite that being kind of a known factor from both coasts, our city elected officials don't seem prepared, or they seem to welcome the influx of higher income residents who will replace lower income residents to go we don't know where. And ultimately, that's all of our concern, not only in a safety factor, but in a tax parameter factor.
Right.
You know, housing is, and you know, that's my wheelhouse. I'm in real estate. I try to help people find homes. I try to help people who have property sell their property at maximum value. There's nothing wrong with a profit if it's an honest profit.
Right.
So if we're not harming anyone to make a profit.
Right.
But that's where everything is getting very convoluted and confused. We're not making honest profit in real estate, and it's affecting everyone. Because if people feel like they have nothing, if their lives are destabilized, if their kids have to leave the schools that they know, if they see their grandmother's home being bought on tax data sale, if they see their neighbor being evicted or not getting their lease renewed, it destabilizes communities, and then they see other communities not wanting to receive them. And so now we have an entire forgotten people that live through divestment, people that afforded these federal funds for revitalization. You know, in Atlanta, we have the Beltline. And so that was afforded off of low income status housing, federal funding. But in essence, that project has booted people out. And so when we displace people and they feel like nobody wants them, nobody wants to receive them. And what I mean by that is other cities are blocking the low-income housing, the affordable housing, the lease purchase housing. And so they feel that. They see what's happening, and they in natural reaction have their own reaction. that we all live with and pay for.
Mm-hmm. Right. And talking about the taxes and the property values, I used to think it was a great thing to go to the tax sale and buy a house. You want to flip, let's go to the tax sale. But then I just got to thinking about this. Developers get tax abatements every single day.
Correct.
They say, well, we're going to build something in your community, but we're not going to pay taxes for 20, 25 years.
Right.
And so, when they're talking about, well, we're going to build these new homes, it's going to increase the property value. But they neglect to say out loud, oh, yeah, but I get a tax abatement for the next 20 years. And
Right.
so people say, well, it's bringing in more property taxes. Actually, it's not. So why not give the people that are in a hardship situation, why not give them a tax break? Why not use some of those tax credits to do a paint job, to repair the roof, put down some new grass? Why not help the people in that community? And I was talking to a realtor here in Wichita about that. And she was saying that it's hard to find home improvement grants or whatever. And she said, but the city of Wichita, they do offer grants. She said, but they put a lien on your home. And I'm like, well, then that's not a grant. It's a loan.
Right.
It's so unfair the way that people are marginalized. It's unfair. We can give the developers every break possible, but the homeowner, get out of here.
No, you're 100% right. And even our tax sales in Atlanta, and I'm going to speak from Atlanta. So our tax commissioner, who is Arthur Ferdinand, he makes an exorbitant amount of money. And the houses that are foreclosed on or have tax liens go to the Fulton County courthouse every Tuesday, the first of the month, and get sold off, mostly to cash investors. And most people think it's a scam. I've actually videoed it. It's very convoluted. You don't even know who's, getting the bid and so on. That being said, why do they sell to cash investors?
Right.
Why not say that these properties will go to homeowner occupants?
Right.
And then you'll actually yield higher value. You can actually, because the cash investor is going to pay bottom
line. Mm-hmm.
But someone who wants to live there will pay more. And then a portion can go to the owner occupant or the former owner occupant who lost the home so they can rebuild.
Exactly.
But ironically, in Atlanta, Arthur Ferdinand, per his contract, gets a portion of every tax that he does. No, it's incredible. And to your point, the developers make money off of poor people.
Mm-hmm.
And we have quadruple the amount going to affordable housing under the Biden administration this year alone. And so we've created a problem, and Atlanta is the perfect, experiment, so to speak, because we had the benefit of seeing what happened on both the West Coast and the East Coast, and we failed to plan, or maybe that was the plan.
That was the plan.
And maybe every city now can look at what's happened. And it's really heartbreaking because Atlanta is such a beacon for so many people of color, specifically Black people. Mm-hmm. I remember driving into Atlanta and seeing the billboard for So Deaf. Jermaine Dupri's, company.
Right.
I remember going to MLK's home, the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's home, his birthplace. And feeling enamored and the energy in that space. And that's all being lost.
Mm-hmm.
And go ahead.
I was going to say, and it's happening everywhere. Like you said, we should have been watching New York. When they say Harlem doesn't look like Harlem anymore. When people, and in one of the videos that I watched, even talked about, rent controlled places that people left because everybody around them looked different. The culture was different. And although their rent was, stabilized, they didn't feel comfortable in their own homes anymore. And so, here in Wichita, for example, by our university, and I'm gonna pick on 17th Street here in Wichita between Oliver and Hillside. Everybody watching in Wichita know what I'm talking about. And you see all these apartments. Now there's a university on one side of the street. And then you look at the campus, there's 2 new hotels. There's a Starbucks, which I hate to say I like Starbucks, but there's a Starbucks. There's shopping centers coming. There's space, empty space to build it, put in new businesses. There are Airbus is an engineering company on the campus, and there's another gigantic building that's under construction. And so the campus is obviously getting ready, right? And so the community across the street, which is convenient, where you can walk across the street to work, or you can walk across the street and go to school, it's changing. When I was younger, the area over there was something like, when you were young, you're like, I want to live over there, when I get older. And now the area everybody didn't take good care of their homes, right? But I've learned everybody didn't have the finances to take care of their homes. Right. And the catch-22 is, if you do take care of your home, your property taxes go up and you're in another bind, right? And so, but WSU, 17th Street, it's amazing. All these apartments, and there's even a sign, and I put it on my video and I'll show a picture. It says coming soon, luxury apartments. And I'm like, what the heck? There's a gentleman that's renting a home over there, and the landowner has sold the home. He has to move, right? And I was told this story Friday, or Thursday or Friday, and I couldn't get a hold of the gentleman. But the owner said, okay, well, you have to move, but I'll give you $200 off your next month's rent if you move into one of my places. How cruel is that? You sold the home. Why can't you just move into another one of your properties, just straight move? Everybody makes money off of poor people. And the crazy part is, nobody wants to be around poor people because they're poor, right? Allegedly.
You're bringing up so many things, and I'm actually so grateful you brought up the Starbucks component, because I think a lot of people are conflicted, or there's a percentage of people that don't know how to roll with what's happening. Maybe even people of median income. Mm-hmm. What we can do, and I fall in that category. I'm of median income, and I live in a divested area with people of lower income and people who are coming in of higher income. Mm-hmm. But what we can do as neighbors is support inclusive development. And that's kind of what's happening in these developments, is that the lower income people have no voice. They're not being included at all. They're being disregarded. And that's a problem for all of us, because we have to live amongst one another. Mm-hmm. And you have, and I'm so sorry, I sent you a ridiculous amount of information.
You sent me some good information.
Maybe just a reading list would be helpful to attach. You'll see that in Atlanta, Buckhead, which is the affluent area, the Buckhead business people are saying we support affordable housing. Well, why is that? Because they don't pay a living wage. Mm-hmm. And their folks have to travel 2 hours to get into work on buses because they cannot afford to own. And it's a very simple premise with real estate. With real estate, in order for you to purchase, you have to have viable income of 2 years and good credit. If there are no local living wage jobs, people cannot attain credit. Therefore, the planning agencies in every city, before you invite an influx of higher income people, whether it's tax incentives, tax breaks, or whatever the case may be, from Los Angeles or what the West Coast to Atlanta, etc., you have to empower your local residents first. And the only way they can purchase and take advantage of lower prices is if they have access to living wage jobs and to build their credit. And if you don't do that, which is so simple in ideology, then you didn't want them to be able to.
Right.
And now you are displacing them to either another city or rural Georgia who is not equipped to take on those residents, which means you, me, every taxpayer, federal taxpayer, every United States tax-paying citizen will pay for the affordable housing components, which in this case, I mean, a simple, like not even real piece of wood has tripled in price due to inflation. So we can't even build affordable housing. The only people making money off of affordable housing that's not affordable for the poor are developers.
Right.
And
yes.
Politicians that have ties to them.
Right.
And we have to be very careful with who is placed in front of us, because oftentimes the politician that may look like more like one of us is put in front to discuss something that seems benevolent. But it's purposeful and it's strategic. That is what has happened in Atlanta.
Right. So to make it plain, everybody, what she just said was that some of us are willing to be used. Some of us are willing to be poster child for some things that we know are not right. So Wichita just passed this land bank policy, and it's supposed to be for affordable homes. You know, again, you have tax issues or somebody left you a home and you don't want it anymore, or whatever. The land bank is supposed to be an easy way for you to donate the land in the house, or maybe one of those quick sales or whatever. And instead it's for affordable homes, right? So, you know, me, your girl, I said, well, what do we call affordable homes? What's the cap? You know, what price range? Do you know they said $170,000? They said $170,000 is considered an affordable home. I'm like, really? Really?
And the property with the land bank, actually, the new owners get a percentage of the value. It's very minuscule, and it stays in the land bank. The new owners can choose who they sell to, but it still remains in the land bank, which I'm so sorry, because this is going to be offensive to some people, but land banks are typically white savior nonprofits funded by white money.
Okay.
In Atlanta, they are. I've met with them. They're going to be very upset that I said that. But that's how it works.
That's how it works. And you know,
the Christian churches who collect assets under nonprofit status. And they send their reverends, pastors, and so on to live among the poor, buying housing at high yield value, and their pastors get to flip properties.
Right. And you get to flip. Right. And you know,
predominantly white.
Right.
And, you know, if they wanted to integrate, you could easily support a local Black church.
Right. Right. Black church, Black neighborhood. I know TI was building the blocks. We could do blocks at a time if you really want to improve the living experience for people that are face a little hardship. You and I briefly talked about Habitat, and you know, I know the old director, the new director, and I did not get a chance to look up the salary of CEOs of Habitat, but you told me that in some places they're making really good salaries.
Over $100,000. And here in Atlanta, I'm going to speak for Atlanta.
Okay.
Habitat home built by volunteers does not have more of a cost with materials of over $30,000. That same home is sold to poor, low-income people for over $100,000.
See, something's wrong with that picture.
How does that work? How are you selling a home to poor people that cost you $30,000 for triple the amount, but you're paying your CEOs exorbitant amounts and you're a nonprofit.
Right.
And the thing is, it's not even working policy-wise, because the Buckhead community, who wants this affordable housing component so that they don't have to pay a living wage, and our workers, our essential workers are under the thumb when they live in affordable housing, because now their housing is at risk. They want to succeed from City of Atlanta. They no longer want to be part of City of Atlanta, meaning they want to separate and remove their taxes.
Yep.
So we have to look at what's happening in Atlanta as a warning, as a flash warning, because Atlanta is home.
Right.
If it happens here in Atlanta, where people literally come here and think this is quote unquote the Black Mecca, what on earth is going to happen all over the country to people of color, specifically Black people?
Right. And here in Wichita, so I've been asking the same question. Well, so about the 1940s, somewhere around there was the first, big urban renewal like it was across the United States. And the predominantly Black area in the downtown area was literally pushed away, right? And they're in the area where we are now, right? And when I moved into my home, white flight had happened, right? Again, this was another area, and I was younger. If you could live over there, you were doing all right, okay? So I moved over in the neighborhood. I've been here about 15 years, and it's flipping again, right? Because, and it makes sense. The suburbs, you got this long drive into the city. All the companies are in the city. The homes are really, really expensive in the suburbs. So why not go back to the area that we flew away from 10, 15 years ago? And who cares about the community? Who cares about the things that the culture does? Who cares? We want those homes back, and we're coming, period. And we're going to get it under market value. So I went on Zillow, because I know a house that sold recently on 18th and Lorraine, and for everybody in Wichita. And so, I went on Zillow and I took a look at it, and it said that it's sold under value per square foot, right? So, I found that out, that developers think of square foot, right? Okay, and so, but we all know that houses in the Black community are already undervalued.
Right.
So the house is already undervalued. You can't get any help with building your house up. The banks in Wichita, for the most part, you cannot get a home loan under $50,000. So if the house is like $45,000, the bank is not going to loan you the money, because they're not going to do it.
Right.
A couple of banks are maybe at 50, some maybe at 60,000. But if the homes that need a little work, a little repair, they're in the market like 50, 52. You probably, if I wanted to sell my home, I can't sell it because the bank won't give somebody else the money to buy it.
Right.
Which means I'm either going to lose it to taxes, or I'm going to sell it to, I need to put my flyer. I'm going to sell it to somebody that's just going to rip me off. So you can't win. The bank won't loan you the money. The developer won't give you a fair price. What do you do?
Well, what's happening, and I understand what you're saying, but from a real estate perspective, let's explain this. So in regards to real estate is a system, okay? And so like my home, I'm in my home right now. Everything within a 1 mile radius of my home affects the value of my home.
Right.
So when we have predatory practices, which has happened for centuries, literally, or decades, in divested communities that are predominantly African American, you see predatory practice. And so now there's an article recently that came out, I actually sent it to you, that opportunity zone properties have increased by over 100%. Well, that's because people from non-opportunity zones, i.e. the West Coast, the East Coast, with high cash have come into cities that are not gentrified yet, i.e. Atlanta and Wichita, and are dropping huge sums of money where it's more beneficial to them, i.e. the opportunity zones. That circumstance has attracted these cash investors and predatory housing. But unfortunately, the cities have invited this. That's what happened in Atlanta. And not only have the cities invited this, but they haven't regulated it. So here's the thing. In real estate, I'm in real estate.
Right.
We have a code of ethics, and it's very clear. In fact, you have a copy of it.
I'm going to pull it up while you're talking.
Sure. And it says that any real estate licensee, a brokerage, real estate professionals acknowledge that above all is the land, and that we have a duty to the public, and that the use of the lands is integral to public commerce. So what's happening in essence is that code of ethics isn't being honored or respected, but we don't have politicians stand up to the lobbyists. And because of that, like any industry, real estate has kind of quote unquote monopolies. So we have parent companies that own maybe 7 companies. One of them is Realogy. Warren Buffett is a part of this company, and it owns Century 21 and Better Homes and Gardens and just massive amounts of franchises. So they operate, allowing their agents, brokers, etc., to compete with the public. So not only do we have REITs, real estate investment trusts, and Wall Street, but we have brokers, and we have brokers who are allowing agents to operate in dual capacity and purchase and compete with the public directly. And it is what has caused an inventory crisis, which is raising the supply and basically raising the demand and reducing supply. So now we have no inventory, and everybody is just going crazy in these bidding wars. But the thing to really focus on is that the lack of industry regulation, the lack of the will from our politicians, or the lack of courage, basically is going to cost every single one of us in taxpayer funds. We are harming the public due to allowing profits over the stability of our housing market, which is how everything is based. That's how our kids go to school. That's how our neighbors interact. That's how our communities function. So we're allowing this to ourselves, but we need leaders who will act on our behalf. Right. Unfortunately, our leaders are very gainfully employed.
Right.
We pay them very well. They have great medical. They have great retirement. Do they know what it's like to purchase a home today?
Right.
Our president is a career politician.
Right.
Does he know?
Right. He does. Right. He doesn't know, and most people don't know what it's like to save and to go to the bank and be turned down for a home loan. Because you want this modest home, right? But for you, it would be a home, right?
And to your point, the president and people like him, his staff, his VP, and our senators and our local politicians, they probably think, put a roof on your home, fix up the kitchen,
right.
You sell it. You don't know what it's like unless you really are there. Right. And that's really the problem. So we have this development component that our politicians relate to that are completely out of touch. And it's exactly why people don't even vote anymore, because they think, well, what's the difference? Right. These people don't want me here.
Right.
They keep calling the cops on me. I can't even walk down the street.
Right.
My home is getting reported to code enforcement, every day. I have to hide that.
Yes.
I don't even know how I'm going to mow my lawn.
Right.
I don't know how I'm going to get the water out of my basement.
Right.
But nobody will assist me there. We don't even have walk-in community centers in divested areas.
Right. Even our community centers have become a cash cow. If you don't have the money, you can't go to And you know, in Wichita, y'all know I'm telling the truth. You cannot go to the local rec anymore and just have fun. They have to make money. And you, if you're not renting or if you're not in one of the classes, the window of just going to the rec center is real small. And they know I'm telling the truth. And like you said, it goes back to our local politicians. Who are we voting in office? And I believe in voting, but I hear you. You know, a lot of people are they're like, man, I voted for that person and they're not doing what they said they're going to do. They said they were grassroots, but they vote every week. I hear the vote 7-0 on every issue. 7-0, 7-0. Developer wants a TIF bond. He wants a star bond. 7-0. The people are saying we want police reform. We want to change the budget around. And the budget goes through us playing 7-0. And I'm like, come on. Be the person that says no. If everybody votes against you, it's okay because those other council members didn't vote you in anyway.
And at least you stood for something. And
Yeah.
the thing about it is too, please, you know, in divested areas where there were no local access, there were railroad tracks. We all know this.
Right.
You can Google this and
Right.
find out that communities were literally divided from access to anything. So
Right.
these people sat here without access to any wage and had to survive. And then the war on drugs happened. And then the war on poverty happened. So people lost family members who were then incarcerated, who literally can't vote.
Mm-hmm.
Who can't vote for the same crime that someone in California
Right.
who smokes weed does legally.
Right. Does legally.
Because they had money. Just
Right.
because they were born in California. Just because they're white.
Right.
Or maybe you're in Atlanta and you had money. Maybe you were afforded a private school. Maybe you had a family member who was an attorney who got you out of whatever the case. The fact of the matter is poor people have a ridiculous amount of records and cannot vote
Right.
based on where they lived. And
Right.
now those same poor people are being booted out of their own homes,
Mm-hmm.
you know, disrespected, just like in the video you saw. The
Mhm.
enforcement is coming down. There's nowhere for them to go. You want to move to this area because it's inexpensive, but
Right.
you don't even like the people that you moved to the area who afforded you the very home you can
Right.
purchase.
Right. Right.
Afforded you the home you can purchase.
Right. Right.
For Christ's sakes, just leave them there.
Right. Leave them alone.
Please say, look, we need to have local access jobs. We need to have community centers where people can get IDs and get their records expunged, get their credit restored. Is an apartment nice? Yes. But my God, can someone poor who's Black own something?
Right.
Is
Right.
that okay?
Right.
Like, they only built this country. Is that okay?
Okay. Right.
Your folks got something off of the death of their folks. Like, is that okay? Is that okay? Like, you
Right.
want to be a liberal? You want to be a white progressive? Could you be okay with that?
Boom.
The house,
Right.
you got the backyard, you got the dog, you got the car. Come on,
In the bike path, you got
you're
and
pushing the stroller in the park. You got it all.
you got it all. You got it all. And it's so crazy.
And
The
then
bike.
you're posting about somebody stealing a flower off your porch.
Right. Right.
Now
Right.
you're humiliating people on Nextdoor and social media and making fun of people. Why did you move there?
Right. Why did you move there? Right. If you didn't like the people you're gonna be living next door to, why did you move there?
Well, the house was inexpensive. But if you want to have that conversation, then let's be real about who you are.
Right. Right.
Maybe
you know,
you are who MLK said was
Yes,
the white liberal progressive from the jail that
Right.
he's disappointed in.
right.
So when you put that Black Lives Matter out in front of your lawn, you know, and say you're voting for Biden and Kamala, good person.
Right. Do something locally. Make it real. Make it real. Right. And you talked about the opportunity zones, right? And that's been a discussion here in Wichita. But you know, we called it in the Black community the no opportunity zones. They didn't even give us the dignity of putting the zones in our actual low income areas. They did it around it, right? Even if it wasn't our area, like you said, it still is a catch because you have to have capital um, dollars. You know, you've made a profit and you take that profit and put it into the opportunity zone. But if you're not part of a large corporation, if you're not making the big bucks, you don't have capital gains anyway.
Right.
And
No, it's all hereditary.
right.
We're talking about history here. You know,
Right.
so it's all trickle down. If you came from wealth, it's trickling down.
Yeah.
I have so many, I mean, I have clients who, you know, people who come from money, their parents give them, you know, their down payment.
The down payment. Exactly.
You know, and people who don't come from money, who are predominantly minorities, they don't have a down payment.
Right.
And they don't have the credit either because they live in areas. So in your area, what's happening? What are you seeing directly? Because this is about y'all.
Right.
And I'm here kind of as a side note to
Right.
maybe give some insight from Atlanta. So what is happening?
What's happening is what's happening everywhere. And it's happening in pockets. You go in the downtown area, and I feel so sorry for the homeless. You know, they had a couple of parks they could hang out in. One of the parks has been revamped, and it's now this place where you go and there's food trucks and I'm like, well, where did the homeless people go? You know? And so I'm gonna stick with my 17th Street here. Coming soon, luxury apartments. And I'm like, who's gonna live in those luxury apartments? And you're not family friendly because a family can't move into an apartment with 1 or 2 bedrooms. So you're not trying to bring in those families that you're displacing. And so I live on the north side, and that's the predominantly Black side. And then we have the south side. And the south side looks worse than the north side. And so I'm like, where's everybody? Where they want people to go? Guess where? South side. That's in worse condition than the north side. And the north side is the predominantly Black side. And so the south is getting, more and more diverse, but it's not, again, the home renters, the numbers are higher in south side than north side. It's bad, but it's at the forefront of bad. I'm on a District 1 advisory board. And so we see when people come in and they want to get the codes changed, right? Mm. And so usually we stick with the community. The community says no, we say no. Mm-hmm. But it still goes back to the city planning, and they override it almost every single time.
Well, that's really our problem with our civic engagement. In Atlanta, we have what's called the NPU, the Neighborhood Planning Unit, that was created by Maynard Jackson. And the direct effect was to allow citizens to have input into government. But under the same NPU structure, we have the basic level, which is the neighborhood association. And in Atlanta, they're allowed to charge monetary dues to vote or hold office. Right. And so our neighborhood associations, which give the input to the NPU, in essence have become elite, just like our politicians. So everything that goes to planning is deficient. And it's a very dangerous circumstance because the input is excluding what poor people or low-income people who cannot pay those dues need. Mm-hmm. And so eventually, just like that video, we're all going to be at each other's throats.
Right.
Because where do people go? And I agree with you, the homeless, there's so much money that is allocated for homeless funding. Mm-hmm. And I have seen the same homeless people for a decade.
For decades, right.
And I'm like, where does this money go?
Right.
And it goes to
a nonprofit organization that takes care of the homeless.
Most of the time, white savior nonprofits affiliated with some type of Christian base. who don't pay any taxes. No, I've seen this over and over. Drive around any nonprofit in your community, they're gated everywhere.
Right.
Gates everywhere, and you wonder, well, what are the gates for? Who are the gates for?
Right.
If you're part of the community, if you're
Right.
really part of the community, what do you need the gates for?
Who are you trying to keep out?
I've lived here forever. I say hello to my neighbors. My neighbors know me. I don't have gates. I've never been touched.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you have gates? You have gates because you're really not part of the community.
Right.
You
Right.
literally are accepting funds, and you're open Monday through Thursday, not open on the weekend until 4 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Paying people very well and doing very little. And our homeless people remain under bridges.
Right.
So
Well,
yeah.
okay, now, like, I like your mayor from what I've seen, but the homeless, I was there and Kevin and I were riding around and I see all these rocks under the bridge. I'm like, why are there rocks under a bridge?
That was particularly cruel.
Keep the homeless out. I'm like, how mean was that? How
We
mean?
paid for that.
I know.
Paid for people to take those huge ass rocks and put them under the interstates to block people from getting shelter from the elements. The same people that we taxpayers say, yes, I want funding to go to this homeless,
Mhm.
the homeless people. And here's the thing, we're about to pay ridiculous sums of money for affordable housing for developers to make money in building apartments.
Right.
And it's only going to be apartments. There's no wealth creations.
Right.
They will become billionaires
Right.
building the apartments.
The apartments.
And materials are sky high. When our cities created the affordability crisis by failing to act, failing to plan, and failing to regulate an industry.
Right. And when your city council week after week approves land banks and we have this new thing here called people and places. There's this whole new plan, right? And if you look at the plan, it literally says by 2031, the community I live in will no longer look the way it does now. So it's already a plan to displace everybody, but it's not enough people speaking up about it. Like, there are people talking about it, but it's not enough.
People
It's
are
not
trying to
enough.
survive. Literally, like the homeless people, we can't blame them.
No.
Because if you're homeless, like you're literally finding where you can get your next meal, take your next bath, find a doctor if you're, get $1. But it's our middle income people who don't have it's our lower income people who don't have a living wage,
Right.
literally afraid they're going to get evicted, or then our median income people are afraid they're going to attack their businesses. And that happens. My business has been attacked for speaking out. So, we have to create a coalition to protect ourselves as we move forward. And I'm so grateful that you covered this, because I know you wanted to discuss some type of training or solution oriented. And the way to do it is to not send people alone up front.
Right.
To stand together and not have a figurehead. Because
Right.
when you have a figurehead, you can chop off a figurehead and the movement is over.
Right.
When you have a coalition of people, you have some sort of protection. And it's very difficult because the people with more means, the gentrifiers, are very organized.
Very.
That's who the elected officials listen to. So
Very.
how do you interface? Frankly, that gentleman, I give him a lot of props, the guy in NOLA, because he went alone.
He went alone. And he actually was protecting his neighbors who were afraid.
He was. Everybody should share that video. I hope I'll put it on your broadcast, because he said, I'm not going to share my neighbors. I don't want them to have problems, but the elders are all telling me they can't cross the street. And, a lot of people are going to look at that video and say, he's so angry. He's calling her out of her name. He's cursing. He's this.
Mhm.
Yes, but There's a bigger context. Don't sit in judgment of that man.
Right.
You don't know his shoes. You don't know what he's walked. He says he was profiled and had a problem with the police
In his own neighborhood.
Correct. He says, literally these people took a personal car and blocked off the street. The entire street is white.
Right.
There are dumpsters in the middle of the video with a porta potty that the houses are being flipped. It's so obvious what's happening.
Right.
And the young lady, who he addressed, he tried to be straight with her. Where are you from? I'm from here. No, you're not. And that's where he got angry.
Right.
Because people are misrepresenting, and I have personally, and I want to attest to this, I've personally seen this in Atlanta. I have sat in porch parties where Black elders are handed a piece of pound cake by the same people who are planning to report, the neighbors to code enforcement or the police.
Right.
So the fact that I can barely swallow the piece of food that I'm eating.
Right.
I'm watching this quote Jezebel, feed this elder this piece of pound, and I'm watching the elder eat it. And not have a clue.
Right. I gave you an example, and I'm gonna bring it up again, and I'm never gonna forget this story, Wichita. I'm never gonna forget that our Westar Evergy, our electric company, I'll never forget this, put 125-foot poles in the yards of homes that are considered on the low spectrum of the value pole, right? They woke up one day and those poles were there. Representative, she was on fire. She was livid. Some of us were livid. I talked about it. I got blackballed a little bit, but I didn't care because it wasn't right. And so Westar / Evergy said, you know what? We made a mistake. We'll give the community $1 million and we're going to make it all right. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And at the beginning, I said, I want to be on the committee that actually will see where the money goes. Put me on the committee. Did you think they put me on the committee? Absolutely not.
It's competent for the committee.
And they said, well, LaWanda, we already know what you think, so we're good. We already know how you feel. I'm like, okay. And how about, and I don't care, I'm gonna say this story until I'm a little old lady and I'm on my little cane. How about 60%? I need to check my numbers, but at least 60% of the $1 million. Okay, let me back up. So the committee was made up of people that allegedly look like me. That
very strategic. They are very strategic.
Live, work, or play in the community that was affected. But let me tell you the first thing the committee did. So it was a particular area that was affected. How about they included 2 other zip codes to be eligible for the funding? I'm like, wait a minute, those people over there were affected. So they added 2 additional, so now we got 3 zip codes that are eligible for some of this $1 million pie. Everybody on the committee, like I said, allegedly look like me, right? Okay. And how about everybody on the committee, or probably 95% of them, belong to a nonprofit? How about each of those persons, nonprofits, got a piece of the pie? How did that work? And then you read articles. Well, Westar did a really good thing for our community. They're putting money back into it. We're going to do some wonderful things. And I'm telling you, this is year 3. If you didn't know that they gave out $750,000, you wouldn't know it. There's no improvement. There's no new trees. There's no beautification. There's no new buildings. There's no new jobs. There's nothing that you can really point to that says $750,000, and I'm still living behind it. And so I made more noise. Do you know they had the nerve to ask me if I wanted to be on that committee 2 years later? I'm like, absolutely not. And one of my nonprofits, my group, I work with kids, a football team. I'm like real kids from the community, real kids,
Right.
real kids. And so we have this education program, and we work with them in the summertime, try to get the grades up, da 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 da. And so the grant was to buy helmets. I'm like, well, if we're preserving them, we're trying to get them, to do well. Let's make sure we keep the brains, intact. Let's get some up-to-date helmets, because the city had changed their policy, and if you didn't have these particular helmets, you couldn't play football. So I write the grant. I'm working with a grant writer, a professional grant writer. So I know my grant was on point. I know it was. You know what we got? 0. Because of me. They took it out on the kids. Yeah. They punished the kids because I spoke up. That wasn't right. And then had the nerves after that, I want to be on that committee. Absolutely not. Y'all just keep y'all blood money, keep doing what you've been doing. But again, they talked about faces. They put the right faces out front so that the rest of the community won't be mad anymore. And I'm going to say this. I'll be honest. Some of the nonprofits are some really good nonprofits. I will say that. They are really good nonprofits, and they are doing some good work. But in the totality of it, it didn't really affect the people who are still looking at polls every day. The people who lost value in their homes, because who wants to live next door to a 105-foot electrical pole?
No, and we all know that if that was a white community,
it wouldn't have happened. As a matter of fact, they tried to go to a white community out west, and they were not happy. Their city council member said, absolutely not.
You think white people are going to allow for a small electrical component in front of their home to go 4 times the amount and not be compensated? And that would never happen.
They compensated, but you cannot compensate enough for what the people lost.
Impacts, literally people walk away from homes when there are power lines in the back, let alone the front. Yes. And so what they do is they take people who look like us, and this is the wholesaling component too. They take people who disarm people, because people think you wouldn't cheat me.
Right, you wouldn't hurt me.
You wouldn't do this to me because you're me. We are connected. Right. And so it's strategic. But we and the media component, we have to stop just listening to the media because they give a false narrative. So the training that you're talking about with the NAACP is imperative. We have to discuss the narrative in the media and not allowing people to be dissuaded or disarmed by tokens that are placed in front who don't see the larger picture.
Right.
They think, well, we might as well take this.
Right.
I completely understand what you're saying about some groups are good, but the fact of the matter is those groups are not willing to take the risk and stand in solidarity.
Right.
Until we do that, until no one has to take the risk alone, we are all subject to risk.
Right. Right.
Because it's going to come to our doors.
Right.
Whether, this is a MO all around the world. The Palestinians feel invaded by Israel. Legacy residents anywhere in the country, in the United States, feel invaded by gentrifiers.
Right.
That's the classic colonization.
Right.
This is actually a repeat of colonization.
Right.
Aspect of colonization, and there are repercussions to colonization, and it is a crime. If you look at Atlanta and the crime, and now we're showcasing all the crime to come down and enforce it. But that's not the solution, because everybody, half those people will die in jail and the other half will come out angrier than ever.
Right.
And children and their uncles and their cousins will know what you did to their family member. And you will have the repercussions of that.
Right.
In a carjacking, in a home invasion, in an assault, in someone being jumped.
Right.
Open your eyes and don't be the token.
Don't
Do not
please.
call for enforcement in your community.
Yes.
The community has been through enough. That's not the answer. We need inclusivity. People need a voice. Lower income people, predominantly Black people, people of color, brown and Black people need a voice, whether white people feel they are harming or not. Whether higher income people who may not be white, they may not like you, feel they are harming or not. We have this situation with the Cubans in Latin America. The Cubans feel like, we went to Miami, took over, you can do it. You came with some benefits. You can't sit in judgment.
Right.
The rest of Latin America and decide what's not done.
Right.
Stop judging your family.
Right.
Stop sitting in judgment of your family.
Right. And we just have to quit being afraid. I mean, collectively, what can happen to us collectively if we all start standing up, if we all go to City Hall together, nothing detrimental can happen. I mean, maybe the police start following us, but they'll have to follow all of us.
They're already following.
They're already doing it.
No.
Right.
That's what everybody was, even though I don't know about what happened over there, but that's what everybody was so afraid about the Capitol. They were like, oh shit, oh my God, the masses are going crazy. They don't want that.
Right. But we get followed every single day. The police. And when I hear people that look like me say, well, we need more police, I'm like, stop it.
No, and please understand, I am in the circles because I can pass, when I'm dressed, white or whatever. What they will literally take you, put you in front and say, you see this person? They want the police. They'll put you on the news.
Right.
They'll make you the neighborhood association president. They'll run you for city council. They'll run you for mayor.
Right.
And God forgive me, because I agree with you. I like our mayor too, but she's not in charge, hon.
Right.
Mayor Bottoms is not in charge. And that's why she said, c'est la vie. She is out of here.
Out. Right. She's out.
Taking the consequences of what happens in the Black Mecca. When she has no authority in the city.
Right. The developers run Atlanta like they run Wichita.
Her own city police chief said, oh, it's political, and then had to go to another city to be the police chief. She did. The white woman said, oh, it's political, got resigned in Atlanta to save face, and is now the police chief somewhere else.
Okay. I'm gonna have to read up on that.
Good. No, and I understand why she's out of here. She's like, you know what? I have to take all this heat. My kids have to watch me in front of this. I'm giving up my family life, and I don't have any authority here.
Right. I see something in here about, we had a hotel that, the city financed, and the hotel went under. So we have 6 districts, and each district got $1 million from the sale, right? Okay, somebody made a statement, but how about this? The Black district, our money originally it went to 2 different organizations, and they had to pay the money back. Now, when the new councilman came in, he shifted some funds around, but the original plan was 2 entities were going to get like 300, 400,000, whatever, but they were going to have to pay it back. And that's how we get treated all the time.
I mean, nobody makes money. Nobody except non-poor people makes money off of poor people. Everybody makes money off of poor people except poor people. And I want to apologize. I was looking at our private chat, and I now see all these comments.
I didn't see it either.
There's like 100 comments here, and I apologize. So shout out to all the people engaged. That's amazing. This is amazing. This is wonderful. Please share the broadcast. Please share it in public forum, because you have a leader here. You have a soldier. You have a fighter. She's willing to stick her neck out, and they're going to come for her. We already had this conversation. She's going to have to walk such a straight line, literally, not one mistake, because anything will be taken and she'll be run through the mud for being honest about this.
Okay, so y'all better have my back. Y'all better have this back, because I got Wichita. I got the community's back. Y'all know I'm truly grassroots. And one of my friends, and he may see this, he kind of made me feel a little bad. He said, LaWanda, and he gonna hear this, I know you like doing everything for free for everybody, but not everybody thinks like you. And I'm like, dude, why can't I do something free for my community if I have the ability to do it? You know, I worked corporate America I put in my time, but it wasn't easy. And that's what people don't understand. I retired. Well, I get a pension. I'm not retired. I get a pension, and I haven't got a full-time job yet because I've been blessed that I don't have to. I've been able to spend my time on my community, and I'm proud of that. You know, I did do corporate America, and it was horrible. My last 2 years were horrible.
Right.
Horrible. And you know, when they say you can't talk about it, you know what that means. You know what that means.
You know, if you are blessed, then by all means, why not pay it forward? I mean, if I don't, you know, obviously we recently connected. I don't know what your faith is, but the law of karma, the law of reciprocity, if you give, it's coming back to you. It's okay. We need to stop beating up on each other for giving. You know, I do a lot of pro bono work, and I'm fortunate enough to take care of everything. And it's great, you know, and I appreciate that. The majority of my clients are people of color. And let's be clear, there's nothing wrong with making money. There's nothing wrong with wealth creation. My clients that I sell their properties, and I have a duty to that client, we sell top dollar. My clients that are buyers, we get them the best house they can afford, you know, for as much. And if sometimes they close with equity most of the time. And that's beautiful. There's nothing wrong with that. The only issue is when we have conflicts of interest that are not disclosed, or when we are cheating people to make money. We cannot cheat seniors out of their homes to make money. We cannot cheat lower income people of color out of divested areas and their properties so that higher income people can come in, take over, and then we send them where? And then we taxpayers, then what? Pick up the repercussions for wealthy developers or predatory housing flippers? No, that's not acceptable. That's not how it works. Real estate is a huge transaction. We're dealing with sometimes the most expensive object, you know, property, whatever you want to call it, that someone spent their life energy on, that someone has an inheritance on, that someone wanted to will to their family. Cheating someone out of their property, whether it's market manipulation or taxes that are manipulated or the city failing to regulate, is an atrocity to those citizens that you represent as public leadership. As public leadership that you swore to protect. And as an agent, a licensee, or a broker, we have a code of ethics to the public. I'm not supposed to go around using my license, gobbling up properties to flip as an agent. It is the same conflict of interest in the stock market or that our politicians have. But then again, they're not regulating themselves. So why would they regulate the real estate industry?
Our city council is putting in place an ethics policy.
Good.
That conversation for an hour got stuck. It got literally stuck. But hopefully the ethics policy is coming, and they're looking at who do you go to lunch with? Who do you golf with? And so I'm hoping that the policy does come to fruition and it has some teeth to it. But
video. Go live every chance you get, because when it's documented, that does help somewhat. Hopefully everything will be online at some point.
Yes.
All verifiable.
Yes. And that's a good point. If you meeting with a city official, don't go by yourself. take somebody with you and hold them accountable.
And record it.
Yes. Why not? If everybody's on the up and up, why not? Why not?
You know, look at the laws, but either way on your phone, record it. They may ask you, are you recording? But that, because that's happened with me. But really, at some point, every level of government should be public and online, live and transparent.
Right.
With an ethics office that is not appointed by the same council in the local city, because
Right.
they're beholden to who appointed them.
Right. And so
Yeah.
and when they go live, then we as citizens, we have a responsibility, guys. We have to watch. We have to watch when city council is meeting. We have to watch when the county commissioners are meeting. We have to listen and go back in, because a lot of these meetings do happen while people are at work, right? And so you can't really, yes. And so watch the videos in the evening. Check out the Metropolitan Planning Committee and see what areas the zone changes are coming. 17th and Harvard, there's a sign in the person's yard. When you see those signs, call downtown and ask what's coming, because you have a window to protest. And so this conversation has been awesome, Robbie. I'm glad I found you on Facebook and I saw that you're about this life, and I appreciate you for coming on. And we got to do this again, because we barely touched the surface.
And anytime, if you do not have a public online group, start one. And folks, Valerie, Candace, Tracy, Tevin, Kevin, watch her page. If you have a real one like this, willing, who's blessed, who can go to these meetings and keep track, watch her page, share every single thing she advises. Tag, tweet, have an online group, make sure it's public, and share every single thing. When it's in the public, they will be careful. Stick together. It's the best thing you can do to help your neighbors, even your neighbors who are not online.
Yes. Yes. All right, everybody. I thank you for tuning in to Think About It. Robbie, I thank you for coming on. Kevin's in the background helping me with the chat. Thank you very much. And remember, this is Think About It. This is the show that is guaranteed that when we're done, you're going to have something to think about. Bye.